Hey y'all, Will here, otherwise Xelray, and today in Once Human we're going to be talking about Prime Wars, how to defeat each boss, and you get video tips along with that so you can see what each boss does. You can figure out how to get the most applicable amount of rating you can through 4 different modes, being destroying the Silver Plague Shield that protects the Prime War boss, dealing damage to the Prime War boss, building defensive structures that soak up damage from the Prime War boss, and in general healing and supporting your team if they go to the down but not out stage. So you can see me right now, I'm building a little defensive barrier. It doesn't have to be huge, and honestly if I use triangle foundations here I could have probably done this in a smaller format, but really you can see I'm just building a little blockade, nothing tall. I'm using half blocks here, and I'm also using half blocks because they only require sintered brick, which is very nice. But this is the only structure I need as a personal player to be able to deal damage and also soak up damage from the Prime War boss. I'm making this short because there's giant turrets that way that I'm heading now that will want to shoot over the barricade I just made. So if I make it too tall, I risk us all losing out on the damage from the turrets because we have no way of aiming at the boss. So just words of the wise, don't clog up the terrain with a whole bunch of buildings. And specifically try not to use wooden building structures because they explode almost immediately and really don't give you all that many points, and they take up a lot of space because you're slamming them down because you need so many just to obtain the point structure. If you use stone foundations, you only need sintered bricks, and if you use half walls for concrete or stone, again you only need sintered bricks. It is very simple to not bring a lot of materials and get a lot of bang for your buck at the same time. All these wooden gates here just make it difficult to run around and essentially just waste time for your entire team. So the first boss just spawned. We're looking at the Ravenous Hunter. He has that Silver Plague Shield that we see dropping from all the missiles, and then he'll have a health bar. Now you can see this Silver Plague Shield is going down very quickly. And even my grenade launcher only hits for about 1,000, sometimes 1,300 on average damage. So when you have Molotovs and grenades, like hand grenades or C4, all that does okay damage, but really you don't get enough time to be able to apply that damage. You can see here now we're burning the boss as much as we can and in a good non-laggy run, and yes, this run did have a bit of lag in it. We could see the entire health bar go down pretty quick. This time we won't, unfortunately. The Silver Plague Shield will come back up, which means that we will have to do another volley of missiles. As you can see, for all the damage that we're doing to the boss, we cannot touch his Silver Plague Shield without explosive damage, and the best explosive damage by far are the close range turrets or the Gatling guns, but the second upgrade, not the first, it does 50% more damage, which is a ton. You're going to be using biomass missiles, and with the proper specialization you can create 3 instead of 1 for the same price. With another specialization you can allow your turrets to do even more damage, and with a final specialization you can even make it so that you can make red plasma missiles, which are 5 times more effective than a standard biomass missile. Those are all ways to deal a ton of damage to the shield on the Prime War boss. And I would highly suggest you go the biomissile route. However, how far we are right now isn't the most effective. I would rather these be closer so we can run back and forth when we get into these kind of silly situations, because we don't want to be wasting time. We also get rated on how much time we take until completion, so the quicker we complete the boss, the more points we get as well. So now that we've finished the shield, we're back to the fighting phase. And unfortunately, since it's laggy, his shield replaced itself. So we have to go back over to our Gatling guns and shoot more missiles into him. Unfortunately, this is a laggy fight just because we have so many people. I think the entire server tried to show up here, so we probably are maxed out at 40 out of 40 people. And a lot of them are throwing Molotovs. I can see a ton of fire on the boss. Molotovs are laggy, grenades are laggy. These things you're going to try to avoid just because it's going to make it harder for everyone else to deal better damage. When you do get the shield down completely and the Ravenous Hunter's health down considerably, he'll go immune, and you're going to see that in a second. So when the Ravenous Hunter does go immune, what you're going to have to pay attention to is he's going to lift his arm with the big gun up in the air and shoot a volley of missiles. Your goal is to make sure those missiles do not land and touch the ground. If you do, well, you're dead. That's the thick and thin of it. So you can see myself taking down some elites right there. That also gets me points. And finally, we're on the missile, and it takes a whole bunch of bullets to be able to blow it up. But once it does, it erupts into a glorious explosion, and then we can finish off the boss. That is Ravenous Hunter in a nutshell. This is for all difficulties. The terrain that you fight him on may be different. Every difficulty has different terrain for you to learn how to fight on. And once it's done, it's done. Make sure, if you can, mop up some elite enemies and normal enemies before the actual mission completes, so you can kind of bloat your score rating as much as possible. Now, remember, we only need 1200 rating to be able to complete hard mode at the highest difficulty, and I got a whopping 2300. Now, you might be surprised, but you can get up to 4700 rating if you did everything possible in this mode. So there's plenty of wiggle room as long as you kind of understand the different stats and how to do them. You're good to go. But mainly, block damage from building structures, boss damage from your own weapons, and then silver plague damage from your biomass missiles through your Gatling cannons. And now we're on to our next boss, the Shadow Hound. And as you can see, most of these bosses are bosses that we have fought in the game. However, they've been amped up a little bit. Every Prime War gives you about 3 minutes from when you hit start for you to set up, make sure everyone has missiles in the right position to be able to deal damage. They have ammunition ready to go. Maybe they need to do some final building just in case. You can see here that people have built to high heaven and back, and that whole area and structure is kind of a hellish area. I don't want to get stuck in there. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the first boss is that while you shouldn't be using hand grenades and Molotovs, you can be using rocket launchers and grenade launchers. I prefer the grenade launcher, however, it does cost 2,000 Starchrome, simply because it allows you to produce a fortress warfare on the ground, and if you time it correctly, near when the boss's shield does deplete, it's going to give you a damage bonus to deal more damage to the boss's main health pool. And also anyone around you will be able to get this bonus as well. So grenade launchers in my mind are a little bit better for that. However, technically they would increase someone else's grenade launcher or rocket launcher ammo nonetheless, because it is all based off of weapon damage. Now the Shadow Hound has spawned, and you can see me thunking some grenades into him real quick, and already out the gate the shield is gone. That's right, that's how quick shields go down when you have a lot of people doing what they need to do. As soon as that shield did go down, I brought down my own little Shadow Hound clone to allow me to deal even more damage, and we just lay into the boss. Now, the Shadow Hound boss is pretty simple. He does move around a little bit more. He does have charges. He does jump up. He has some projectiles that fly out from him. And as with the original boss fight, he'll jump in the air and spin around until you break his shield. However, when you take him down quickly, what happens is he will shoot towards your base. That's right, towards where your Stardust Protector heart is, that you should have protected with some structures of your own, and you have to burn his health down as quickly as possible. You see me over there trying to suck up some extra health, and I see his health moving, so I turn around and I start dealing damage to the boss. He goes into a stun, and he is gonna die here in just a moment. Now, even when you do something quickly, you're trying to get as many points as possible. I don't think I'll hit the threshold of 1200 on this one. I was a little bit lacking in my movement and a few other things. However, did get a lot of points. Just off that, we're gonna at least hit the second tier, and that is a victory. That's Shadow Hound, and it's a very quick fight. Even the Secret Servitor is a very quick fight if you do it correctly. So that's the second fight right there. We're done. That was it. This is hard mode. It may look like easy mode, but these things do not have a ton of health when you have a lot of, not even a lot, a good handful of competent people doing what they need to do to take down the boss. When you have a lot of people making it difficult, like in the first fight, things take longer, things are more laggy, and things in general are more difficult. When you have a smaller group that knows what they're doing, and especially when you have a larger group who knows what they're doing, this is a very smooth gameplay experience, and you can confidently take down bosses very, very quickly. And on to the last fight, the Secret Servitor, and by far the hardest fight in any of the Prime War difficulties, mainly for the fact that it has a wipe mechanic, but not only that, 2 different wipe mechanics. Not only do you have to deal enough damage quick enough, but you also have to make sure you don't hit the wrong target, because that is an insta wipe for your entire group, and please do not waste your group's resources. These do cost a lot to get into. It requires a lot of material to make your biomass missiles and your Gatling cannons, and it always just kind of sucks having to deal with a 20-second cooldown. So getting right into this fight, here we go. Secret Server is about to spawn, probably one of the coolest looking mobs and bosses in the game, and we are going to start heavy. We always do here. You can see those red plasma missiles going in for 75,000 damage each instead of 15,000 damage like the standard biomass missiles. And the shield is cracked and the boss is on the ground. You do not want to let this boss have any wiggle room, and you need to defeat it as quickly as you humanly can. As you can see we're just dropping the health pulled down, and we're about to hit a very, very specific mechanic here, and this is what makes this fight so challenging. You'll see that it'll go immune here in just a moment, and when that does happen, we have to wait. That's right, we don't want to shoot our guns, we want to wait and watch. We need to use our eyes for this, because if you don't, you wipe. You're going to see the boss split into multiple pieces here, and you're going to have to kind of focus on which one looks different. And you can see 3 different bosses, and you can see they're kind of playing a shell game. You don't know which one is the right one to shoot. People are getting confused, they're firing. Wait, and when you can see that the bosses, 2 of them are silver and one of them has that black and silver type of mix, that is the boss you want to shoot. If you take that boss down, you win the game. You had to do this quickly enough because the boss is slamming lightning bolts down onto your main base, and if that main base crumbles, you lose the game. And that is the Secret Servitor with a great rating of 1300. Those are the Prime War fights, and that's as easy as it is to get through them. However, it does require some knowledge and some planning and some know-how of how close you need to be with the turrets so you can be as close as possible without having them explode when the boss deals damage to the surrounding area. If you have any other questions on Prime Wars, please leave it down in the comments, and I'm sure if I don't, someone else will be happy to answer that comment for you who is knowledgeable about it. And thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. You guys have been blowing up my channel recently on the Once Human content, and I can't say how much that means. With that, later.